We're joined on Flow FM by the Mining and Energy Minister, Tom Koutsantonis. Tom, thanks for joining us today on Flow.
Anytime, Ricky.
Tom, we are looking at this decision regarding the mine at Terramin's proposal to mine some gold in Woodside near Lobethal, smack bang between two wineries, Bird in Hand and Petaluma. Just explain to us the rationale for the government's rejection of this proposal.
Adelaide Hills have worked really hard over the last 20, 30 years to gain this international reputation for its wine. It's diversified. It's gone from producing, fruits and vegetables to now producing some of the best quality wines in the world. And it's a hard-earned image. And selling the wine isn't the only experience you get there. The experiences are tourism values, sitting outside a cellar door, enjoying a glass of Adelaide Hills Riesling. It's all part of the experience. And the question I had to ask myself was, there are three wineries there. There's Petaluma, there's Bird in Hand, and there's Art Wine. And this mine was in the middle of all three and adjoins them. Now, technically, the mine could have been mined. Technically, they could have extracted the minerals. But the question I had to pose was, is this the right amenity? Is this the right fit for such a premium destination? And I just didn't think I could approve it.
And when it comes to all the regulatory boxes, it sounds like, and there's some angst from the Chamber of Mines and Energy, that they'd spent millions complying. They'd ticked all the boxes, hadn't they, in a regulatory sense? This was ultimately a government or a minister's call?
That's right. The Mining Act doesn't just require me to consider the regulatory approvals. I can consider other matters. And the other matters I think about are whether or not this fits. Now, the truth is, a mining regulation that says you can extract the minerals and meet the environmental requirements doesn't mean you should have a mine. For example, there could be very large deposits in metropolitan Adelaide. Does that mean if a mining company could get the regulatory approvals to mine in the middle of Theberton or in the middle of Burnside, we'd let them? No, we wouldn't. So I looked at this and thought, right, okay, what's the value to Bird in Hand? What's the value of Petaluma? What's the value of clean green wine and the image of the Adelaide Hills to South Australia? Given what we do with the tour down under, given what we do to try and sell the state, given what we are trying to do to differentiate ourselves from the rest of the country as a destination, I couldn't possibly approve this mine.
Now, you say that amenity was a major factor, and some of the wineries nearby that you've named had described their concerns about groundwater impacts, even though the proponents, Terramin, had said there was going to be a very minimally invasive procedure or keyhole procedure to get the gold out of the mine. Was groundwater a factor as well?
It was a factor, but it wasn't the main factor. Terramin were proposing to use a novel approach. It had not been used in Australia before, in my memory. We had it peer-reviewed by the CSIRO to see whether it could be done. The evidence came back that it could be, but there was always the possibility of catastrophic failure. And if there was catastrophic failure, the water would have just flooded the mine. And there were a lot of processes that Terramin were going to go through to extract water and filter it and re-inject it. And they were going through this process of concreting their mine as they were going to try and maintain the water flow, which seemed ambitious, but to be fair to them, they got it peer-reviewed. We made them get it peer-reviewed, and it came back like it could be done, but it was novel and had not been done before. But my main concern was the reputation and amenity of the area, and I take into consideration other aspects, broader aspects for the broader community. And in my opinion, this was not the appropriate site for a mine.
Now, the Chamber of Mines and Energy point to this as an old mine from the 1800s or something and claim it was one of the top 2 gold mines in Australia in terms of the quality of the ore grade and one of the top 10 in the world, and say it's unusual to have high grades of ore in such a small deposit. The Chamber of Mines and Energy's Rebekah says this is a red flag to mining investors in South Australia. Do you accept that?
No, I don't. This is a mine with a 5-year life. And you've got to ask yourself, what damage could have been done to the mining industry more broadly if something went wrong? And what would that say about South Australia if you could have a mine within metres of 3 iconic wineries and something did go wrong?
And you mentioned what could go wrong, but also it's so close to wineries. Is this decision has energised some of our listeners in regional South Australia about whether this is a precedent of some sort when it comes to considerations of proximity to farms or agricultural production. Does it set a precedent in that sense?
I don't think so. I think we take every mine on its merits. This has always been a controversial development. This has always been something that, in my opinion, probably shouldn't have even been tenanted. But it was. And the company went through all the regulatory hurdles it had to go through. But in the end, I'm required by the Act to look at a broader thing. And the broader thing is, of course, is this the right fit for South Australia? And in my opinion, the answer for that is no. So on balance, I've decided against approving this mine. I know it's a very tough decision. It's a tough decision for Terramin. It's a tough decision for their shareholders. But when you look at Woodside and you look at the area, you've got to ask yourself, is this the best industry we want there? Do we want other vineyards? Do we want other cellar doors? Do we want those cellar doors to expand? And what would the impact be on them? And I've made a decision that it's inappropriate.
Now, you've won the approval of two independents, Rebekah Sharkie, the federal MP for the seat covering the mine area, and also Dan Cregan, a relatively new independent in the state parliament. You say amenity was the major factor. Was there anything in a political sense that was important to make a decision that won the approval of the two independents?
Look, no. Woodside and the Adelaide Hills have traditionally been a very, very strong Liberal area. I mean, there have been some very big swings against the Liberal Party in the Adelaide Hills recently. The Liberal Party came out very strongly against this decision. I mean, they really wanted me to approve this mine and attacked me quite vigorously yesterday over it. I think it was a bit hysterical myself. But look, I didn't make it for any political reasons. I mean, I made it because I think it's the right decision. And what the Premier's been asking us all to do is to think long term. Let's do it right. Let's do it once. What's the right long-term decision to take here? And in my mind, international tourists who are coming to South Australia for that experience in the Adelaide Hills. I mean, one of the great things we have is proximity to our great wine region. You know, McLaren Vale, Adelaide Hills, Barossa. These are all within an hour, hour and a half of Adelaide. Do we want there to be these large-scale operations so close to iconic wineries? And what does that do to the amenity and the impact and the experience that you have at a winery? And I felt it was the wrong message. And I know it's hard for the Chamber of Mines and Energy. I know it's hard for the mining industry. But I'm not here to be popular. I'm here to do the right thing by South Australia. And if that means that the Chamber of Mines and Energy gets upset, well, so be it. I have to do the right thing, and I think I am doing the right thing. I mean, if I take what they say, that means all I do is just tick and flick whatever the department tell me to do. Well, then why have ministers? Why not just let the public service run the entire government? Let them decide where mines should go and where roads should go and where buses should go. I mean, we need to have some sort of civilian oversight here. That's why we have elections. And the Labor Party have decided that this is not the right place for a mine. The Liberal Party would have approved it. Well, that's politics, I suppose. But in my assessment, it was the right thing to do.
Tom Koutsantonis is the Minister for Energy and Mining. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Rick.